From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight,
hello and welcome. Tonight, former military President Ibrahim Babangida advises on practice of true federalism. Former U.S. envoy Walter Carrington blames Nigeria's slow growth on massive corruption. Finance Minister advocates harmonized taxation to boost local and foreign investment into Nigeria. And Roma couple faces abduction charges in Greece. Court orders their detention pending trial.
On Business News tonight, U.S. Consular General Jeffrey Hawkins rings the closing bell at the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
And on Sports News tonight, former CAF and FIFA Executive Committee member Dr. Amos Adamu free to return to football administration after the expiration of his 3-year ban for bribery.
Stories from 3 states, starting from Anambra, where the PDP held a rally, and then the open heart surgery in Ibadan, Oyo State, and then, of course, Kogi agriculture development.
We begin tonight with a call for the devolution of powers among Nigeria's 3 tiers of government in the spirit of true federalism. The call is coming from the former military president, retired General Ibrahim Babangida, when the chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission visited him in Minna, Niger State. According to General Babangida, aside from proper devolution of powers, a greater percentage of the nation's revenue should go to the states and local governments because they are closer to the masses. The former military leader also called for diversification of the country's economy from oil to other alternatives.
I said yes, I asked for true federalism, and I tried to explain what I meant when I said so. And naturally, whatever you adopt has got consequences. If it's fiscal or true, whatever you call it, all boils down to devolution of powers, okay? And once you devolve, then you take over certain responsibilities which are normally, let's say, secondary education. If you have secondary education, take it away from federal government, for example, and bring it to the state government.
Nigeria's former military president, retired General Ibrahim Babangida. Now, the former United States ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington, says Nigeria must do away with corruption if the nation is to move out of its present economic woes. Mr. Carrington also listed lack of good leadership and foresight on the part of the nation's leaders as other challenges affecting national development. The diplomat was the guest speaker at the 29th Convocation Lecture of the University of Ilorin.
As we all know, corruption is the most terrible monster that confronts Nigeria. But we must all work hard to tame this monster. In other words, I am certain that virtually all the problems associated with governance will be removed if we can all summon the courage to tackle corruption and banish it from our activities. Development doesn't have a bigger enemy than corruption, and the development of Nigeria is hinged on ridding our polity and politics from corruption and corrupt practices.
Let's take a look at some politics now. The meeting of the governors within the fold of the All Progressives Congress Governors Forum, which was scheduled to hold this evening, has been postponed till tomorrow, October the 22nd. The governors' meeting was to have held in their newly opened office at the Sokoro district of Abuja, where its Director General, Mr. Salisu Lukman, and other members of staff have since assumed duty. The APC governors were expected to deliberate on the issue of dwindling oil revenue, which has led to the reduction of what each state gets from the federation account. They were also to discuss how to establish the structure of the party across the country. Now, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has called for a harmonized tax system in the country for enhanced local and foreign investment. Dr. Iweala, who was speaking at a meeting in Abuja, said multiple taxation has over the years served as a setback to the penetration of the Nigerian market. She also said that in spite of the achievement of 26% revenue collection in the past 5 years, a lot still needs to be done to support the growth of both small and big businesses.
The issue of multiple taxation is one which has been on the front burner for many years now in Nigeria. And despite several attempts by the government to tackle this issue, it has remained a difficult one, affecting both big and small businesses and the movement of goods and services. In particular, for small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, this is a very difficult issue as they have the least capability to bear the uncertainty in the environment. The issue of multiple taxation and uncertainty as to the tax environment is particularly harmful to the economy because it increases the cost of doing business in the country, discourages local trade and investment, and also gives a negative perception of the Nigerian business environment to domestic and foreign investors.
Minister of Finance, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Now, in what's clearly not good news for advocates of housing development in Nigeria, experts have said it will take the country over 17 years to bridge the housing deficit, and that's if 1 million housing units are constructed yearly. This was revealed at the Summit for the National Housing and Slum Upgrading in Abuja. However, the Vice President, Namadi Sambo, who also attended the summit, gave the assurance that the federal government is developing a national strategy for mass housing delivery.
Recent statistics from the United Nations Habitat show that Nigeria's housing and urban development sector is still over 60% in slum condition. This is coupled with existing statistics that show a 17 million housing deficit in Nigeria as of 2012. This is a circumstance that has necessitated the convening of a national summit on housing and slum upgrading. Key players in the housing sector brainstormed on how to develop sustainable strategies for mass housing delivery and make slums a history in Nigeria.
It is important to note that while mass housing, provision and slum prevention are intertwined, the eradication of slums cannot be realized through the building of houses alone. We therefore need to embrace a new approach which emphasizes the development of cities in which housing provision and city improvement are conceived as mutually all complementary in order to generate a new economic sector.
The best approach to grow the housing and urban development sector is to put in place the enabling policy and strategic frameworks for its revitalization.
Despite government seeing political will, experts believe that it will take sustained and intensive development of mass housing for Nigeria's housing deficit gap to be bridged.
We have a deficit of 17 million houses. Even if we build 1 million houses a year, that is 17 years. Are we sure we'll be able to do that?
The earning capacity of Nigeria is very low compared to many other countries of the world.
The target is making slums history by 2020 and mass housing delivery by 2030. These, according to the experts, can only be achieved by putting first things first. Workable policies, provision of basic amenities like water, sanitation and roads, land planning, and then unflinching political will. Omelogo Nadi, Channels Television News.
Well, let's take a look at some legal matters now. A federal high court sitting in Abuja has reserved judgment in the case against 3 Lebanese nationals accused of terrorism and illegal importation of arms and ammunition. Now, at the resumed hearing today, the prosecutor urged the court to convict and sentence the accused persons for being members of a terrorist group known as Hezbollah. The defense counsel, Robert Clark, however, prayed the court to discountenance the submissions of the prosecutor on the grounds that Hezbollah is not known as a terrorist group by Nigerian law.
The arrival of the accused persons, Mustafa Fawaz Abdullah Tahini and Talal Ahmad Roda at the Federal High Court, signaled the commencement of final submissions before the court. It was a final exchange of legal fireworks as defense counsel Robert Clark, leading other senior advocates, adopted his written address and formulated 5 questions for the court to determine. These questions include whether the charge of conspiracy can be validly sustained, whether the accused persons can be tried in Abuja for weapons claimed to have been found in Kano, whether the mere possession of foreign currency is enough ground to accuse one of them of financing terrorism, and if the non-fiscal presentation of the said arms and ammunition can be said to be credible evidence to convict the accused persons.
We have argued that the law is on our side, that the federal government has not declared Hezbollah a terrorist organization. Therefore, no organization in Nigeria can charge them to court as belonging to an organization that has not been gazetted by Mr. President. In Boko Haram's case before the same court, the gazette was tendered to show that Boko Haram has been declared a terrorist. The prosecution has failed to produce any gazette, and therefore we are saying that in the absence of any gazette, the court has no jurisdiction to declare them as terrorists. And if they are not terrorists and they don't belong to it, then all the charges relating to terrorism has to fall.
The prosecutor Simon Egede, who declined to speak to journalists after closing his case, told the court that sufficient evidence has been provided for the court to convict the accused persons for acts of terrorism, terrorism financing, and illegal importation of arms and ammunition. Following the conclusion of their defense, Justice Ademola Adeni reserved the judgment to a date to be communicated to all parties.